Milan is one of the world's most famous cities. This economic powerhouse of the north of Italy is well known for its fashion, art, architecture, and its two giant football clubs. But the streets of Milan would not be the same without the city's nearly century-old trams that are still being used to transport people on a daily basis. So let's dive into the story of this truly iconic tram system. While there were already interurban trams towards Milan before, it took until 1881 before the first urban tram lines appeared in Milan. These first horse-drawn tram lines were opened on occasion of the National Industrial Exhibition, held in the city. The lines formed a radial network, originating from Duomo. After a bit more than 10 years of operation, the company Edison, named after the famous scientist, aimed to bring his inventions to Italy. It started experimenting with electric trams. This was very successful, and the Edison company was put in charge of the full tram network. This resulted in the full network being electrified by 1901. In the years that followed, the tram network grew and was also used for various purposes other than simply transporting passengers. This even included the transport of coffins from so-called funeral stations to the major cemetery. After this somewhat experimental phase came the First World War. Although Italy joined quite late, it strongly affected the operations of the tram network, and it caused reduced service levels due to the lack of available personnel. In 1917, the municipality took control over the network, which is still the case today. This agency, ATM, oversaw various updates of the system, such as rearranging the network away from the overcrowded turning loop at Duomo Square, by extending the radial routes to other nearby turning loops. Also during this period, the legendary 1500 series came to Milan. During the Second World War, the tram system got hit hard, but damages were repaired quickly. However, as was common in the post-war period, people saw trams as outdated and had to make way for cars, shiny new metro lines, and buses. The first sections were closed during the late 1950s and early 1960s. The idea was to remove the trams from the city center altogether, but this unsavory plan never came to fruition, luckily. The 1970s were more focused on reorganizing the network and removing most of the interlining. Some further cuts were made, but the city also invested in modernizing the system. New trams joined the fleet, and the network was converted from trolley pole to pantograph for current collection. The 1990s saw some of the last closures, as another metro line was opened. But ever since the middle of the decade, the fortunes of the system turned. Abandoned sections were revived, and various extensions were built. New trams joined the fleet, and as usual with legacy systems across the continent, this system is now definitely here to stay. Which brings us to the network of today. This is the tram system of Milan. Currently, this network is around 117 kilometers long. However, there's a lot of unused sections, and the interurban lines have been closed for a while. The network uses an interesting gauge of 1445 millimeters, just 10 millimeters wider than the standard gauge. This gauge is the so-called Italian gauge. Trams are powered by 600-volt DC overhead wires, and there are 5 depots on the network. Let's now take a look at the lines. We start with line 1, Roserio Ospedale Sacco to Greco Rovereto. Line 2, Piazzale Bazan to Piazzale Negrelli. Line 3, Duomo to Gratosolio. Then line 4, Piazza Castello to Niguarda Parco Nord. Line 5, Ospedale Maggiore to Ortica. Line 7, Precotto to Piazzale L'Agosta. Line 9 runs between the railway stations of Porta Genova and Milano Centrale. Line 10, Viale Lunigiana to Piazza 24 Maggio. Line 12, Roserio Ospedale Sacco to Viale Molise. Line 14, Piazzale Cimitero Maggiore to Lorenteggio. Line 15, Duomo to Rozzano via Guido Rossa. Line 16, San Siro to via Montevelino. Line 19, Piazza Castelli to Lambrate. Line 24, Piazza Fontana to Vigentino. Line 27, Piazza Fontana to Viale Ungheria. Line 31, Cinicello Balsamo via Primo Maggio to Bicocca. And finally, line 33, Piazzale L'Agosta to Rimembranze di Lambrate. This video about the tram system of Milan is part of an already 47 episode long series of videos of transport systems. I would love to show you many more in the future. Therefore, it would be really helpful if you like my video and subscribe to my channel. Let's now take a look at the tram fleet. The tram fleet in Milan is very diverse, with tram types that reflect the level of engineering and style preferences at the time of their development. Nearly all trams in Milan are unidirectional, which makes turning loops a necessity for all the lines in the city. The oldest tram type in the fleet is the 1500 series, which is based on the Peter Witt streetcar model in the USA, produced by various local manufacturers. What makes this type special is that it is nearly 100 years old, and it is still in regular service. This truly shows the durability of these trams, and they single-handedly made the tram system of Milan one of the most iconic systems in Europe. These trams are 14 meters long and have 3 doors. They were delivered between 1927 and 1930. These trams received the nickname Ventotto, pointing to the year when most trams entered service, 1928. The next type in active service is the 4700 series. This tram type consists of 2 sections. The trams were delivered in 1960 by Breda, although 2 converted 4600s were delivered by Stanga. Despite their similarity in design, the original 4600 series by Stanga left service in the end of 2024, whereas the 4700s received an overhaul between 2018 and 2022. The next type is the 4900 series. This 3-section type received the nickname Jumbo Tram and has been in service since 1976. These trams were built by 2 different manufacturers, Fiat Ferroviaria and Stanga. Recently, 51 trams of the 4900 series received a revamp with various internal and external upgrades. The other trams of this type only received a new paint job, which aligns them with the current cream, white, yellow color scheme. Then we continue with the 7000 series, which is part of the Eurotram family of Sozimi and ABB, later acquired by Atrans and subsequently Bombardier. Bombardier grouped them under the Flexity Outlook program. These futuristic 7-section trams have an interesting design, which consists of 4 short sections above the axis, which in turn support 3 longer middle sections. The first section is completely dedicated to the cabin for the tram driver, and its triangular shape and green color make the tram appear like a snake. The Eurotrams for Milan were built in 1999 and 2000. The next type in the fleet is the Ansaldo Breda Serio. This tram type was delivered between 2002 and 2011. 48 trams of this family are 7-section trams and are marked as 7100 series. Then there are 68 trams of the shorter 5-section variant, which carry the nickname Sirietto, which means Little Sirio. This is, however, not implemented by the manufacturer, as the 5-car variants in Florence are simply called Sirio. There is also a small divide in the Sirietto trams, where 35 trams are of the 7500 series and 33 of the 7600 series. The 7500 series initially had the shorter last section, without the door, which was later corrected. The 7600 series were already like that from the get-go. The newest type in the fleet is the Stadler Tramlink, which only started service in February of this year. Sadly, none of them were active while I was in Milan. These trams are the sole bidirectional type in Milan, and will come in 2 variants, a 3-section version of 25.4 meters and a 5-section version of 35 meters. As of now, 60 3-section trams and 14 5-section trams have been ordered. But Milan still has some options available for more. The Tramlinks are branded as the 7700 series in Milan. So how many people use these trams? As Milan does not separate passengers by mode in their annual report, it is hard to give you the latest annual figure. However, on their international website, ATM's head of rolling stock engineering gives the rough estimate of 300,000 passengers a day. This would lead to an annual ridership that is well over 100 million passengers a year. And given the size of the system, it might not be all that much. But then again, Milan has a well-developed metro system, with 5 lines, and of course the old Ventottos do not have the ice capacity. So what will happen in the future with Milan's tram system? Besides the delivery of new trams, Milan has also some extension projects ongoing for its tram system. The first section is a short extension of line 24, from its current terminus, Vicentino, southward to the European Institute of Oncology. The second extension of the network is a huge one. There will be a so-called metro tram section of around 14 kilometers that connects various important locations and metro lines with each other in the north of the city. It will make use of already protected spaces on roads and the already existing section of line 7 between Bicocca and Precotto. In its setup, I think it is very similar to the Jokeri light rail in Helsinki, but obviously it serves a much more densely populated area and connects to even more metro and railway stations. Trams will run every 5 minutes, and the line has a total of 25 stops. Both of these extensions are being built at this very moment. And that's it for the tram system of Milan. Click here for my video about the tram system of Florence. And as always, thank you very much for watching.